Well, hello, fifth grade. Happy Mondays. L91, simplifying decimal numbers. So we just have a couple ideas to get through here. One is I first want to reaffirm what we mean when we say simplify. Simplify is, I won't call it a difficult word because that would seem like an oxymoron, but simplify does mean something very specific in math, and it doesn't mean necessarily easier. That's how we'll say, oh, it's simple, it's easy. But simplify and to simplify basically means to express with a lesser number of symbols. Sometimes math textbooks, Saxon included, will use another word, and that word is reducing. And they'll sometimes kind of put those together. We move forward with that reducing is something that we use specific to fractions alone. To simplify is this lesser number of symbols, and that's what I want to keep it as. You've been technically simplifying since kindergarten. So, the first time you ever did 1 plus 2 and you called it 3, you simplified it. You took what was 3 symbols, a 1, a plus sign, and a 2. That's 3 symbols, and you called it 1 symbol. You said it's 3. That's simplifying. So simplifying is a catch-all term. We're not talking about reducing today. And reducing is actually the only thing something you can do with fractions, and based upon the lesson title, that should be clear. So the big idea of today is that something like 0 and 20 hundredths is a value. It's a very real value. However, it could be simplified. It's currently arguable that we're using 4 symbols. We got a 0, a decimal point, a 2, and another 0. Can I express the same value, the same amount, with in a more simplified version? And yes, I can. I would simply call it 0 and 2/10. And that final tagging 0 is not really necessary. And a visual of this is, let's say I had 2 squares. And same size, right? And I broke this one up into hundredths. Boom, 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 boom. It's not perfect hundreds. It's just the idea. Now, 20 of those hundreds would be like this portion, right? About that portion, right? That would be 20 of the hundreds. 10 twice. Now this, if I broke this up into tenths, and I go, well, I need 2 of those tenths, that would be that portion, which is the same portion, right? So the key is we're not changing the value. We can never change value. So the key, though, that you need to know is that expressing your final answers in this form, 0 and 2/10, rather than 0 and 20 hundredths, is expected, right? That is just expected moving forward. It says expecting. That means I'm expecting of you. I'm going to change it, though, to expected moving forward. That's our reality. You need to express things simple as possible, unless asked to do something else, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's say I had this simple addition problem. 3 and 75 hundredths plus 2 and 75 hundredths. We know when we add that we always want to line up our decimals, and so you see me doing that here. Right? Notice how my decimals are lined up. That's key in addition and subtraction. Now, I've also encouraged you that whenever you're adding decimals, to place that decimal right away. Sometimes people will forget it if they don't. If I look at my hundredths column, I have 5 plus 5, which we know would be 10. I'll put a 0. I'm carrying the 1. And then I've got 1 plus 7, 8 plus 7, which is 15. I'll put a 5, and I'll carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus the 2 is 6. Now, this is not a number you're allowed to box up anymore. Why? Well, as we're talking about, can I express this number simpler with less symbols? Yeah, currently got 4 symbols. Guess what? I can do it in 3. 6 and 5/10. We're not talking about changing the form of the number, like turning it into a mixed number or anything like that. We're just saying, hey, if you could express it in less symbols, then moving forward, the expectation is that you're going to do so. Except for if you get a question like this. So here, the statement or the direction is to express to the hundredths, right? Now, clearly, right now, this value, 5 and 3, 3/10. So this is currently expressed to the tenths. Now, when they ask you to engage in this, it is either assumed or will be directly told that you can't change the value. So we're going to express the same thing, the same amount, without changing its value. It's currently expressed to the tenths. So if I don't want to change the value, then I'll put an equal sign, stay on the side of truth and justice, if you will, in the math world. I'll put my 5 and 3/10, and then the key is that's only to the tenths. I need to get out to the hundredths. What digit can I place there without changing the value? Well, hopefully you'd conclude I can place a 0 there, and that's the same amount. 5 and 3/10 is the same as this value, right? And so in this case only, I'd be boxing that up because that's what they told me to do. They want me to express it with that tagging 0. Now, again, I haven't changed value. I have changed how I would say it. The expression on the left, I would say 5 and 3/10. Well, how would you say the expression on the right? Okay, go ahead. Billy Bob? 5 and 30/100ths? Yes. Well done. Let's write that down. Good job. That's out to the hundreds. 5, remember when we use quotes, that means how we're going to say it. 5 and 30/100ths. Don't forget that D, people. Don't forget that D. Say it, and don't forget it. Hundredths. Yeah. A little bit more. Let's do more. Here I have a number line. You can see that I didn't place 0 right in the middle. In fact, there's nothing really in the middle. I'm going from 0 to 1. I have a little bit more space on the 1 because I'm going to need it. And then write those values down below. I have 6 over 10, 6/10. I have 1 over 5, 1/5, 1 and 1/10, and 0 and 80/100ths. And our goal is to place this on the thing. Now, your book is kind. It also gave you this direction to draw a number line out to the tenths. So I find that with something like the tenths, I want to drop that middle, right? And then in order to get tenths, so that would be my 0 and 5/10 right in the middle there. I need 1, 2, 3, 4 equally equidistant little tick marks here. I'm going to do that on the right side too. Just 4 between that purple and the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again, how is that tenths if I only put down 8 things or 9 things? Well, it's about counting the spaces. I'm not counting the tick marks, I'm counting the spaces. Like, here's 1 space. 1, let's count them out. Okay, ready? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, counting the spaces, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if I broke it up into 10 equal parts, which I've done, I've broken it up into what? Yeah, the tenths. So let's face this one. I have 6/10. Well, I know this purple right here, that would be right in the middle, so that would be 5/10. So 6/10 must be right there. So I'm going to put a dot. I'll put 6/10 above it. Okay, let's, I don't want to do the 1/5 right now. Let's jump to this one. 1 and 1/10. Well, that's past 1. So I'm going to need few more tick marks. Nice equidistant. Let's go 1, 2, 3. Nice and simple. So this is 1. That's 1, right? Well, if I'm going by tenths, how would you count that? Well, again, you'd say 1 and 1/10, 1 and 2/10, 1 and 3/10. So right here must be 1 and 1/10. Yeah? Let's do this 80/100ths, which kind of seems strange because what were we just talking about? How you can simplify decimal numbers. So shouldn't we just call it 0 and 8/10? And because this thing's broken up into tenths, we already know where our 5th tenth is. Wouldn't right there, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10. But here's the thing. They didn't ask me to express 8/10. They wanted 80/100ths. So I should put the 80/100ths above there. And then the last one, 1/5. So there's probably a couple ways we could go about this. It's currently from the 5th. I could turn it into a tenth by going, okay, so 1/5 is equal to something out of 10. And then what would that something be? Well, I can do the little kindergarten box, like, okay, so 5 times what equals 10? We know that would be 2, so I have to multiply the 2. So I could say 2/10. And so, well, I can find 2/10 because that would be right here, like 1/10, 2/10. However, remember, I'm not placing 2/10. I'm placing 1/5, which would be right. There's 1/10, there's 2/10, boom. But make sure to write 1/5. And then what they might make you do from there is say something like, now that you've placed it on the number line, express these values from least to greatest. So again, remember on a number line, the lesser's to the left and the greater's to the right. So I'm going to start with that guy, and I'll name all of these values. Remember the original numbers they gave me. So I have 1/5, put a comma, 6/10, put a comma, 0 and 80/100ths, and then 1 and 1/10. And I box that up. Yeah? So there's one more issue that comes up here, and it's kind of, you guys do this, and it's funny when you do it. So let's say I had like 500 and 49 minus 513. And it has to do with you guys are very diligent. You're taught a certain way. And it's hard to break you out of those ways. But clearly, when I look at the ones, 9 minus 3 is 6, 4 minus 1 is 3, and 5 minus 5 is 0. And then I see some of you boxing this up. But that's where I kind of laugh a little bit. Because you don't really, I mean, if I ask you how old you are, I think most of you are like 11, right? You don't say you're 11, do you? No. What do you say? You say you're 11. So in the same vein, we wouldn't box this up. We would, whether we ever put the 0 at all, which I think as you move on in math, you'll probably stop putting that 0. But I do need end answers that are as simplified as possible. So 36 is your best answer there, not 36. Try and break that habit if you can. Hey, it's Monday. We did an investigation, so we got the real deal homework. Homework 91. Hope you're well. Bye.